Remote working and global talent sourcing have been known and praised in the tech world for the last 10-15 years. But the recent COVID-19 pandemic caused a global lockdown, which turned many other companies to consider it seriously. What does a business need to go remote? Should we really put on suits and ties when working from home? And which virtual habits and practices will we bring with us when we come back to the office? I'm Dzmitry Hryb.
I'm Marta Sztonyk.
And I'm Jakub Szmańda.
We'll discuss these and other common questions in the first episode of Software Home by Deviniti. Hi Marta, it's Kuba, and it's nice to see you in person again.
Hi, it's super nice to see you both. To quote the movie Titanic, it's been 84 years.
Yeah, it's good to see you in person, not only on video calls.
Exactly. How do you feel after working from home for the last 5 months? Does it differ to you so much compared with going to the office?
Well, to be honest, I feel great. I always love to be at home and to work remotely, so I am super glad despite all of the situations that's going on in the world. And I have a dog, so he's super glad too. So it's like double win for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that I am not the only one with pets only by my side. I'm also good about this situation, but maybe it's because this is not my first longer home office. Personally, I even prefer to work remotely, but as usually there are pros and cons of such a situation. For me, there is not a big difference when it comes to the productivity and work-life balance, but I know people who feel otherwise. This is not an easy situation, especially for those who live alone or for those who miss the company routine. And I think the attitude to remote work mainly depends on the character of the individual, but also there is a lot of variables related to, for example, the internal processes of the company, but I think leave it for later. And what about you, Dima?
Oh, I must admit I enjoy it very much. I don't have to commute, so my day is a lot more structured than before. I can take a little home workout break to regain energy, which isn't possible in most companies as they don't have a gym space in the office. Also, I'm a late sleeper, so I appreciate the fact I can start my day 15 minutes after getting up and not 2 hours. Because of this, I finish earlier and have more time in the afternoon too. Having a coffee with my girlfriend who also works from home or a cat petting session midday is a pleasant bonus as well, so I can't complain at all. Did you have any doubts when going remote, like where to put the boundaries between work and life or how to dress up for video calls?
Well, for me, there was no doubts because I knew that I can easily go remote and work efficiently. But from the HR perspective, allowing people to work from home, it's always a risk. We wanted to keep employees and company in a good shape and harmony. So changing and doing this pretty quickly was a risk for everyone. But to be honest, we didn't have a choice. It was like super fast and like from a day-to-day switch. So there was a lot of doubts and we had relating to how on earth we can be as effective as at the office, how to communicate well with teams when we don't have them around and how to organize our work. So that was a big risk for everybody, I think. And the first problem that came out was that people are more often to not separate work from life when you're going to sit at home all the time. You're starting to work all the time and neglect all the areas of your life that's not work. And that's also going all the way around. So people are assuming that if you're at home and you have laptop by your side, you're always at the Slack and you can always respond to the email and you can do all of your work like on a spot. And that's super not true. So even though the work-life balance phrase is starting to be considered a cliche by a lot of people, it started to be super relevant once more when we're on total lockdown. And the second thing that was slightly different was that people who don't have the good conditions at work cannot work from there. So someone may live in a woodland cabin, or someone can have a toddler, or super loud roommates, because there are a lot of people who are still living with like 2 or 5 people that they don't know. And there are things that could easily distract you from work and even make it impossible to do if you are, a salesperson or a recruiter as myself. So you have to call all the time and that's pretty much impossible. So yeah, remote work can be effective and fun, but it requires a lot of self-discipline, good conditions to work, and a nice communication between you, your team, and pretty much everybody to make it work.
Yeah, I agree with Marta that remote work can be fun, but life is not always cotton candy and rainbow. Not everybody was prepared for this, not only in the technological way, but also when it comes to the mindset. In general, some myths and false beliefs have grown around remote work. For example, there is a common opinion among those who do not work remotely, of course, that people who can work from any point on the planet are nomads who travel a lot and do the fancy drinks all the time. There is also a myth that when you work remotely, you do not need to work as hard as in the office. However, researchers indicates a little bit different facts. For example, GitLab Remote Work Report from 2020 shows that 52% of remote workers actually travel less than their colleagues from the office. There are also materials which we can find that remote workers are having problems with setting the correct work-life balance, and they are working more than typical 8 hours, what causes faster burn down and lower productivity in the long run. But as we agreed, it always depends on the individual.
Yeah, exactly. People work more because their managers assume if someone's always at home, they are available to answer a quick question at any time, be it 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. That's not true. So there are many misconceptions about remote work, especially among those who never tried it. Many managers assume that productivity will go down when people aren't under control.
Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions about this, and it's not surprising. Fun fact, my grandma called me 3 weeks ago, and she said to me if there is someone from the office coming to my home to check if I am working or not. So the misconceptions are huge. Going to the managers, there is this misconception that if you are going to work from home, you're probably going to sleep in front of your computer and do absolutely nothing, or clean your house, or do anything but your job. But as we discovered ourselves, it couldn't be further from the truth. Of course, there will be few people who does that because that's the way it is. People are different. But most of the employees are working the same, if not more, as they would at the office, so they are really productive. There is a survey by Gartner that said that 59% of virtual employees are performing above the expectations compared to 54% of those who are going to the office. So even before COVID-19, the last year's Digital Workspace report revealed that 65% of companies increased the efficiency after shifting to remote, and I believe 82% workers said that they feel less stress and in this settling because, you're at home, you feel chill. Even earlier than this, there was a joint experiment of Stanford and Peking universities, and they had the call center employees at Chinese travel agency where they randomly assigned them to either work from home or from office for 9 months. And that led to 13% performance increase of these people who are working from home. And that was because of fewer breaks and sick days and the most comfortable environment to work possible. And the company then rolled out to remote work for the whole company. And that led to gains almost doubling to 22%. So if that's not convincing, I don't know what is.
I agree. There are some bright sides. For example, in our company, remote work was possible earlier. And I think it helped us a lot to get used to this mode quite quicker. In my opinion, the preparation part is very important, but what worked for one company doesn't have to work for all. There are a lot of business sectors which are different and have different business models. That's why there are only ground rules, not the golden recipe to pass the transition in a good condition. Of course, technology and positive mindset are the key, but also setting a work-life balance is essential for success. Harvard Business Review shows that over 50% of people said they are and they were often or even always exhausted during their remote work, and it's like 32% increase in the last 20 years. This is a big disclaimer, in my opinion, when it comes to the long-term goals for the company.
Yes, I think we should not be so optimistic right now because, as you, Marta, said, people work more hours and that's why they are more productive. So I think for the whole organization, the preparation is crucial and good metrics should be established to measure productivity based on the outcome and not the hours worked. And also there will be people who are hired fully remote after COVID-19. And I think that their way of integration into the team will also be such a metric. Okay, we've said that some people find it difficult to work from home just because they're used to having a distinct place to work. So when they try working from home, they can't switch contexts and end up working all the time. That's the great irony of allowing passionate people to work from home, say Basecamp CEO Jason Fried in his book, Remote Office Not Required. There are also other home-based distractions because families can suppose we're always available just because we're home, or we just cannot focus on the work when we are not in the office physically.
Firstly, we need to clarify what are the ground rules for people who can easily work remotely. Global Workplace Analytics defines a job as being work from home compatible if it does not require personal contact and does not require physical work that could only be done on site. That is why a more effective way to recognize those workers basing on their actual task than basing on the business sector or their character. Let's consider, for example, the case of agriculture and fisheries. I can't think about few more such local-based businesses as fishing or cultivating the fields. But the same global workspace analytics shows us more than 6% of employees who work in this sector are already working remotely. It's quite simple when you look at it from the different perspective. To grow something on the field, farmers need to buy, for example, fertilizers. They can only do it in the place, like a shop or dedicated e-commerce, or just simply call a sales rep and settle the terms of purchase. That's why teams like sales reps, business consultants, developers, or support agents can easily switch to remote work. What do you think about this point of view, Marta?
Well, I like to look at the employees and their personalities individually. Maybe that's an HR thing, I have no idea. But I think we are all different, as you said, and our responses to the world are different as well. So, as we said before, the change to remote work was super unexpected. And we could see clearer this reaction of the employees to the new environment. And some of them took it as a blessing from the gods that they don't have to go to the office anymore. And some took it as a nightmare. So to make it simple, I will sort the employees by the types of their personalities. So first would be introverts and highly sensitive people. And they are really happy to work remotely because you're at your safe space, so home, and you're alone off with people that you like and communicate well with. And you can interact with coworkers on your own terms. So, for example, you can switch your notifications off if you are focusing on the task. There is no office noise, so no one is coming up to you and talk out of the blue, throwing you out of focus by, making noise with their keyboard or telling a joke that you wouldn't laugh at. On the other side, we have extroverts who are missing all of those things. So they are really tired of being alone at home, just as introverts are getting exhausted at crowded offices. So extroverts are mostly longing to be back at the office, have to face-to-face conversations with living people, not with little image at their laptop, their cameras, etc. Having chit-chat at coffee expresses, having to be surrounded by people. They are getting energy from them, so they are missing it. But for both of those types, there are some benefits and some difficulties they are facing at home office. The benefit of the home office that I know of, and Dima said it earlier, so that's being master of your time. So if you're most productive at night and therefore you are most focused on your task, you can do it at night. If your team said that's okay, maybe agree with them first. If you need to stretch or take a nap during the break instead of eating lunch, you can go for it and do it because you have perfect place to do it and that's your home. You can do whatever you want. The biggest difficulty at home is work-life balance, as we said earlier, that making our days way more flexible and we can somewhat customize it to our needs. And that's a huge plus for everyone, I think.
Yeah, but to do this, you should be able to master your time and manage your time properly, right? So if you can't do it or no one taught you how to do it, you risk a quick burnout, right?
Work-life balance is so important because by doing that, you can save space for your needs and save space for needs of your company. And that's really hard to do, to be honest. I think I cannot do this perfectly, and I think no one can, but to try and to prioritize tasks or using tools to help you get through the day without burning out or without procrastinating is a big lesson from doing remote work. And that's a really nice lesson to have, basically.
Yeah, that's true. But in addition, I would like to mention that there is also a recognizable trend among the remote workers, which shows us a lower level of loyalty for the business. Remote employees do not feel bonded with their colleagues and companies because they do not see each other and do not spend the quality time together. This situation potentially can increase the higher rate of fluctuation among the staff because of a more self-centered point of view. According to the Gartner report, 33% of remote workers workers intend to stay with their current teams compared to 46% of full-time office employees. But it's only one study. Global Workplace Analytics, quoted earlier, states the opposite. I think this is a problem and matter of integrating remote staff with the rest of their teams, which they are working on the daily basis. But in order to the HR, I'm not the expert. I bet Marta has much bigger experience in order to integrating coworkers, making daily basis more fun and pleasant.
So yeah, this is a really big problem that you mentioned, that remote workers feel detached from the rest of their team, especially when they haven't worked together earlier in the office. So Marta, what do you think? What we can do both as workers and leaders to focus on effective work and strong company culture?
Well, keeping people engaged requires a lot of work and dedication from both sides, but it pays beautifully. One of the first things that we did as HR department when we went to lockdown super quickly was to share some ways of working remotely with the employees. So we made few guides to home office, how to maintain work-life balance and so on. And we also took a special care in keeping all of the Deviniti people up to date wherever they were. Therefore, our board is communicating with them via a form of newsletter twice a month. And we made an hour-long session of Ask Me Anything, where the members of the board were answering questions of the employees, even the hard ones. And that really paid off because people are in touch with what's going on at the company. And that's keeping people calm. I know it's keeping me calm. I don't know about you guys, but it's nice to know. And we are planning to continue these things in the future, so that would go on as long as we are at the lockdown and maybe even more. At the level of the entire organization, such transformation requires a lot of effort and cooperation between the management and the HR departments. So for some, it must be a mental transformation related to change the approach of the determining employees' work. And as we are an HR department, we are the center of development, delivery, tracking of employees' training, managing work-life conflicts, establishing policies and practices, even helping people deal with loneliness. So we have a lot of work during this time, as you can imagine. And to make teams feel better and show them how to work things out and how they are doing in a different perspective than their own, we are conducting a health check monitor in pretty much every team. So it's a tool from Atlassian Playbook, and it's making wonders in checking the moods inside of each team. And it's really helpful to see that, as we are not seeing each other at all, pretty much.
Yeah, HR department in our company did really big miracles.
Thank you.
And it's not everything which we done, because recently I have hosted a webinar about the remote work where I gave some tips and tricks how to handle a home office and, of course, how to stay effective. In a nutshell, the most important tips from this webinar are: to prepare the ergonomic and clean workspace with a decent desk and chair. Only about 30% of employees have the same home office setup as in the office, when it comes, of course, to the parts like double screens, let's say access to the documentation or anything else. And this is one of the most important parts of staying effective during the remote work. So really, deal with it. Second part of the preparation is just to set the working hours and communicate it to all your colleagues, family, and everyone that might need something from you during the day. A clear message is crucial to not to be disturbed. Third part, do your morning routines. Changing from the pajama, brushing your teeth will help your mind just to hop into the working mode, to the working routine. It's very, very important. Also, just try to use some working techniques like deep work, Pomodoro, or anything else you know. Combining these techniques with the active breaks will help you to stay fresh and focused. Also, try to plan your activities. It's a good practice to plan upcoming days, even a whole week or more if it's possible. It helps your colleagues to stay calm about almost everything, about the activities, about the daily basis, about routine and everything. And it helps you make track of tasks and it's a lot easier to just have things planned out and sorted out. Those tips can be useful for everybody, but I think managers should be focused on something more. Teams relations and efficient processes are also crucial here. It's typical for companies at the beginning of the digital transformation that some processes need to be adjusted to remote reality. For example, basic stuff like meetings. A few minutes of casual chat during the daily stand-up will help to maintain good atmosphere and keep a track of team motivation. Managers should also consider always-on video conference room per team, of course, where the team members can linger a little and, of course, come and go as they please. Besides the good relations, there are work operating system for keeping track of a project, progress, and tasks, just to minimize the amount of calls during the day. Also, due to the GitLab remote playbook, it's good practice to have a knowledge base where all employees can find essential info just to do not interrupt each other with always the same questions asked over and over. And as I said, this is only brief overview, but always you can dive for more details into our resources.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Basically, what was considered agile practices is something essential for most teams working remotely right now, because you have to meet each morning and perform a stand-up just to share the statuses of what you're doing, what's blocking you on the way. You know, you should have your things planned week by week or month by month or in some other time frames like sprints or something like this. So I think these practices are becoming more and more common.
Even at HR, we are doing the sprint type of work right now. It's never been done before. We did it as the way to manage lockdown, and now we are doing it all the time because it's working.
And the other thing you said, Kuba, was about documentation. And GitLab actually is a big advocate of documentation and defaulting to documentation instead of meetings. Even if you have a meeting where you have a limited group of people discussing something, you should create a minute or a meeting note and share it with the rest of your team so that everybody is on the same page, actually. So that's another great practice. Now that we know this and can prepare our people to do their jobs, what do we need to do as the whole organization to successfully perform the shift to work from home?
Well, as we know, the fish roots from the head first. So to prevent bad moods in the organization, we need to start with managers and leaders to provide them with knowledge and good practices to manage their teams remotely. When it goes down to the employees, so to get them the knowledge that they need, the HR and the leaders communicates all the information, changes, do's and don'ts, and so on. Of course, not everyone liked the rapid shift to remote, but now it's something that people get used to it. So the key to being comfortable in such sudden change is to make it feel normal ASAP. And therefore, our employees were free to take their monitors, chairs, and all the gear that they needed to work with from our office. So the thing that Kuba said to make it feel like office and make it feel productive. And it's nice to encourage people to develop the same rituals, as Kuba said, as they would do as they were going to the office. So for me, it's walking my dog at the morning and at the evening. By that, I know that I started the workday and ended the workday. So it's working for me. Get a dog. That's a really nice thing to have. Remember that caring for your employees is also beneficial for the company. So if you're happy and fulfilled, you will do your job better. So check on your employees, respond to their needs, and give them feedback on how they're doing. It's super simple. And it may sound as a cliche, but people are always forgetting about that. And giving feedback is one of the best things you can do for your teammate or your worker to make them feel good.
Yeah, a good piece of advice is always to over-communicate.
Yeah.
So basically you leave the same information in a couple of places and you also call them to tell it once again, just, for the sake of not leaving anybody out.
Yeah, that is totally true. Just to stay in touch, stay up to date and be, just to know everything what is going on. As I mentioned previously, there is something more than just communication and good relations. There is also one crucial key, one essential stuff, in my opinion, is technology. Without it, managers and employees will be blind and lost in a jungle of fragmented data. Leaving the piece of advice in one place and then in another and another is a good idea, but eventually we need to have everything aggregated in one place. According to many studies and researchers, for example, the Gartner webinar about future solution, desktop documentation, storing data on the local devices, and on-premise solutions are going to be extinct by 2025. Cloud-based collaborative software is our only future. Only this group of solutions guarantees everybody access to the same data from different locations. High level of collaboration and, for example, work operating systems can improve the control and visibility of projects, and that is, one more time, essential part of achieving goals. Another piece of useful advice is to strip the tool stack down to a minimum while working remotely. The minimal stack should be based on solution like G Suite to have external communication, files, and calendar in one place. Company-wide chat like Slack to stay in touch with everybody, as we mentioned earlier. And of course, a tool for video conferences, which are very, very common now. And for this, we recommend the well-known Zoom. In our company, besides already mentioned tools, we are using Atlassian Stack and Monday platform to keep track for all our efforts. If your team needs an access to internal systems through a VPN, ensure that everybody has easy admission and clear instructions on usage. For companies who don't have an existing culture of documentation, it will be a most difficult shift when it comes to starting the remote work.
You say having a more developed tech stack is okay when you already have a good workflow and when you have tested it in the office already, just like we did. So we use Atlassian software, we use Monday platform, we use a couple of other tools, but it hasn't changed for us at all. We have the same projects, we have the same workflows, we do this stuff just like we did, but only through video chats and Slack conversations. So I think when adopting technology, you should think for the future as well. There's no sense in adopting a tech stack that you will throw out after half a year of using because it doesn't scale. It's not adjusted well to your team's workflow. When you come back to the office, you should be using those same tools. What about those whose work has to be performed face-to-face or relates directly to the office space? We've seen lots of companies going broke and people being laid off because they can't do their jobs during the lockdown.
Yeah, you're right. It hasn't been easy for the companies that are based on face-to-face contact. We've all seen that people are losing their jobs super rapidly at event companies, retail, and so on, because they were not able to perform. We were not able to use their services, and they couldn't possibly handle this financially. Lots of companies were trying to find creative ways out of it. So restaurants in majority went to the delivery mode, which was super fine for me. Event agencies, coaches, personal trainers were making their events online. I saw I believe that was CrossFit thing that was going on Zoom. So if you can do it on Zoom, you are good. But some people were unable to do anything. Sometimes the only way that company can survive is automation at the expense of dismissing employees and changing the business models. And it's super harsh and it really breaks my heart for them. But we've seen a lot of situations like this over the past, I believe, 6 months.
Yeah, that's true. The last months were very tough for those who couldn't adapt quickly. But on the bright side of those changes, of course, we can recognize some very fruitful solutions and good examples of restructuring of business approaches. One of my favorite examples is the Amazon Prime. This drone-based delivery system is a really game changer. I can't wait for it. Literally can't wait for it. Or let's take massive growth of self-service checkouts in supermarkets, which fasten grocery a lot. I think everybody already used this. The bright spot can be found in the most harmed and suffered business, and I mean the tourism and recreation. The new approach gave us breathtaking virtual tours in the most beautiful places from around the world. This is revolutionary because it gave the opportunity to see amazing stuff without the need of spending a lot of money on traveling. We can also find interesting approaches in the gastronomy, such as fully self-service restaurants, where you can put the order on a touchpad and when you get the notification when it's ready to grab and still you can eat it in the place. There are a lot of examples from all of the business sectors of amazing development and big behavioral changes. In my opinion, this is a bright side of this, let's say, not easy situation.
Well, this is good for businesses, but not always good for people. I mean, people should learn technology right now and shift their competences to something more digital and just steering the machines that do the automated stuff just to save their jobs. So that's the price of the progress, I think. Looking at everything we've said before, do you think remote work is really the future of work?
In general, I think yes. Maybe not such a big percentage as it used to be during the biggest lockdown, but according to the Gartner survey, the percentage of remote employees increased from 30% to 48% compared to the pre-pandemic time. Also, more than 60% of employees believe that they could work remotely, at least do part of their task, if they were allowed to do so. According to data from Global Workspace Analytics from 5 million US employees, 62% of them said that they could work remotely, so probably it's worthwhile to allow them to perform their job from their home offices. The turn forward digital cloud-based tools and relevant good practices is the best way to secure the company in the case of emergency. In order to those enhancements and a high level of flexibility, when properly implemented, those practices will result in increased effectivity and, of course, employees' improvement. What do you think, Marta?
Well, as you said, flexibility is the key, and we have to be open to whatever model of working would suit the employees best. According to Gartner, even at the new normal, 81% of employees would like to come to work in office in some time dimension. So we can see now that after most of companies in our branch switched to the remote work without bigger losses, as we did, the organizations are more open to full remote workers. So yeah, if we will stay flexible, the remote work is the future. And I think that's a bright future to be.
Okay, we see people in most sectors of the economy working remotely, even like Jakub said, in agriculture, fishing and hunting, up to 6% actually of all employees. But according to what you, Marta, said, the offices and commutes aren't going anywhere soon, at least for a couple of days a week. So which habits should we bring back to the office, and what will be the outcomes of the growing percentage of remote work? What do you think?
Well, I think the biggest outcome for us would be the way that we live and the way that we are planning our day. So we can see now that without having to drive in traffic every single day, people have time to do whatever they want in the free time. So develop their passion, work out. I've been working out and I never did it. And to spend more time with their families or their pets. And that's awesome. Also, as I said before, employees are now more open to the full remote work, and the companies are more open to hire the people who are wanting to work remotely as well. So that's just a brand new door opening right in front of the eyes of every HR department everywhere. So that's a lot of talents who are living outside the city that we have our office on, or the people who are not able to come to the office every day for the various of reasons. And now they are able to work with us, and that's like a whole new world, as would say Aladdin. And to think bigger than just a business, the less we are commuting, the healthier the earth would be. So we can see on the lockdown that wildlife is coming to the cities during this time, but that's not all. Less commuting means less traffic, and less traffic means less air pollutions, which we have plenty of in Wrocław. Of course, if you are at the oil industry and you are selling gasoline, you must be really worried, but half-time remote work could reduce carbon emissions by over 51 million tons a year. So it's like taking all of the New York commuters off the road, so it's super big. Looking at the climate crisis we have in, that's a really promising perspective.
Yeah, that's true when it comes to the bigger picture. It's true that this situation is healthy for the planet. But when it comes to the business point of view, there are even bigger changes coming. For example, the real estate business. For those companies which are renting offices, those changes mean mainly benefits. Based on conservative assumptions, the US General Service Administration estimated that a typical employee can save an average of $11,000 per half-time remote workers per year. The primary savings are a result of increased productivity, lower real estate costs, and of course reduced of absences and turnover. The US GSA also estimates that employees can save between $2,500 up to $4,000 per year working from home even half-time. Those savings are primarily due to reduced cost of traveling, parking, food, and so on. So these benefits go to both sides, employees and employers. But on the other hand, we can find the real estate owners who are in danger of losing a lot of money. And as our friends from gastronomy and tourism, they need to quickly find the beneficial solution just to survive. One of those solutions is already popular, and it's based on selling the offices after some enhancements as flats. Mostly, buildings used to co-working areas and offices are located in a gritty and great spaces. And as usually, the transformation is inevitable, and wherever we go back to the offices or not, I think we need to just adapt.
Now, when we sit at home and work on cameras and on chats, we also show our co-workers and our managers some of our lives. You know, people get to know our families, people get to know our pets, people see our habits, what we are doing day by day. So I think this humanizes the work to some extent, and it would be really cool to bring the same approach back to the office.
Yeah, that's true. If we will ever come back to the office, even just partly, there must be some changes in the way that we work in. Maybe, as you said, if the companies would like to save some space, the idea of hot desks would be more present. So people would take less of office space and they will just switch. And after seeing the workers at their, let's say, home environment, the companies might drop the idea of dress code, and that would be cool because it was common in a lot of offices, not ours, thank God, but the big corporations, for example. And maybe, as Dima said earlier, the organization would be convinced to the, let's say, task work. So judging people not by the time they are spending at work, but on the speed and accuracy and efficiency of doing their tasks. I think we'll see what the future brings. And I must say that's pretty exciting to watch.
Thank you, Kuba and Marta, for this fruitful conversation. For those who listen to us, if you'd like to learn more, take a look at the description where I'll put links to the sources we mentioned, and let us know how did you like this episode by mentioning Deviniti on Facebook, Twitter or LinkedIn, and follow us for more. It was Software Home, folks. Hear you soon.